Hi there, my name is Rosemary Vanderban, and I'm going to be discussing today a court case regarding Dr. Fata for my healthcare law and ethics class. First of all, the meaning of malpractice according to medical dictionary means that doing something bad, wrong, or injustice of treatment of a patient professionally. And that means it would result in injury, unnecessary suffering, or death to the patient. The court can hold that the malpractice has occurred even if the practitioner acted in good faith. Now, Dr. Fata, he did commit medical malpractice. He used to own a business called Michigan Hematology Oncology, and through this business, he submitted charges to Medicare and other private insurance companies for about 6 years, possibly longer. He prescribed chemotherapy many times to patients who did not even have cancer. If patients wanted second opinions, he would make fun of them and discourage them. Basically, he bullied or deceived 553 people into getting chemo treatments that they did not need and causing their insurance companies and Medicare to pay $34 million in fraudulent, unnecessary claims. They also found out that he took kickbacks from 2 local hospice companies and poured Medicare and private insurance proceeds into his own diagnostic testing facility where he ordered more unnecessary tests. And then I also found on one of my searches that he also had a charity, but there's no real information about the charity as far as any wrongdoing on that part for that business. According to the government, he had a patient load of 1,200 people and he received $62 million from Medicaid, but he had billed more than $150 million. And I got this information from the Lebanese Examiner regarding Dr. Fata. And the things about his patient is that it did not bother him in the least if a patient would cry or scream from the pain. There's also a well-known patient of his named Teddy who now has to take 40 pills per day, and he needs a new liver. And he showed his scar on the video that we were given the clip for. And another patient who did not have cancer was told he had a rare blood cancer and needed chemo and radiation. This caused the man to shake uncontrollably and lose teeth. Another incident that I read about was a woman who was working in the emergency room at a hospital, and she had been diagnosed with a fake disease also, and now she suffers from a lot of hair loss and she has high blood pressure. Ironically, he was investigated prior to this attempt by a prospective nurse who was at that facility there that day doing a job shadow. At that point in time, and she turned him in, they told her that he was not at fault, and she had the paperwork to prove that they told her that he was not at fault. In 2013, another doctor at the practice reported him for diagnosing patients with cancer when they didn't even have cancer. And then so he told the office manager about that, and they started looking into it. And the FBI came over to his house, and they started investigating Dr. Fata. And finally, he did admit to committing several crimes. U.S. Attorney Barbara McQuaid prepared a 23-count indictment, and this was charging him with healthcare fraud, conspiracy to take and receive kickbacks, money laundering, and unlawfully procuring naturalization papers, because apparently Dr. Fata was not a natural-born U.S. citizen. He came here from Lebanon. The last charge was added by the U.S. attorney because they said that he concealed the extent of his fraud from the immigration authorities when he applied for citizenship. In the end, he ended up pleading guilty to 13 counts of healthcare fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to pay and receive kickbacks, and 2 counts of money laundering. And in return, they dropped the immigration charges. He did plead guilty before federal judge Paul Borman on September 20th, 2014. When the sentencing began, he did not face his patients or families. And he said that it wasn't about the money, but being drunk with power, and he allowed his pursuit of money and power to override the Hippocratic Oath, which many know is first do no harm. He stated that he prayed for repentance and right of redemption. But as far as I could see, and I looked in several searches, I did not see that his attorneys really prepared too much of a defense for it. And then July 10th, 2015, Fata addresses the court for the first time. He said he was horribly ashamed of his behavior and he was on a self-destructive quest for wealth and power. Another thing I found in my investigation of all this is that he was also ordered to get drug tested and go through a drug and alcohol type of program because apparently he had some sort of addiction, but they don't talk about it very much in these articles. The government also asked the doctor or the judge to have the doctor pay back $17.6 million that had been paid by Medicare and Blue Cross Blue Shield for the fraudulent treatments. In the end, he ended up getting sentenced to 45 years in prison for misdiagnosing over 500 patients. In my opinion, he was given leniency that he did not deserve. For example, there was a businessman in Athens, Alabama named Joshua Creasy who wrongfully billed for hearing aid services and received 15 counts of fraud. And then, although the court case is still ongoing, he's going to have to pay $1 million and then restitutions to the victims in the amount of $1.5 million. And the maximum penalty they could hit this businessman with is 10 years in prison, but he could potentially receive 150 because that's the maximum penalty for each count of fraud is 10 years. Meanwhile, here's Dr. Fata only doing 45. So far what I read about this other case, there wasn't any patients dying or in pain over their hearing aids. I'm sure it's more or less just one of those deals where just the money part of it. The case is still ongoing, but I feel like Dr. Fata's sentencing was more necessary. He should have gotten more time and certainly a more, I guess I could say a less nice place for him to do his time at. Because he put people willingly through pain. Several died, now have some really bad health issues, and also all have major medical bills to pay. And I found this information about the gentleman with the hearing aid business on the Trussville Tribune regarding an Athens man who was charged with healthcare fraud. Now, even though Dr. Fata was not charged for 175 years, which was what people wanted, I think 45 years is simply just okay. He is 50 years old, and the average life expectancy for males in Michigan is 75.69 years old, according to worldlifeexpectancy.com. And I truly wonder how it is that he can serve his time in a South Carolina prison instead of Michigan. I did a lot of searching, and I did not find anything about why they sent him here, but I'm thinking that they sent him to South Carolina because it is a federal crime that he committed instead of just a state crime. The ethics that Dr. Fata did not follow were honesty and physically, mentally, and monetarily hurting his patients for billing them for procedures and medications they didn't need. He also watched and heard his patients in pain and suffering, and this did not faze him in the least. He was secretive to his staff members. He only used a pager instead of a cell phone. He was possessive about his patient files, and he did not want to share information. So right there, he's doing wrong. He purposely hired new providers who are mostly from other countries and didn't have a whole lot of experience. So he was trying to fly under the radar that way too. And then at the court, when he said he prayed for redemption and leniency, all that seemed to bother him was that he got caught and not wanting to do time for his crimes. After he started serving his time, he ended up getting a new trial, or he tried to get a new trial, I should say, complaining about his lawyer giving him bad advice. And he also said, in a narcissistic sort of way, that the patients who passed away would have passed away anyway. And he even hounded his patients over their bills. He once sent an email to a patient that owed $50,000 saying, "I need my money!" exclamation point. And then I found this information on NBCnews.com. The oversight that I believe should be provided is that any practice serving patients should have a private website where if there's a concern, it can be submitted in confidence without repercussions. Medicare and the various other insurance companies have measures in place that they can track how often certain expensive procedures are done, and that when a patient receives and claims are committed, that someone can audit this doctor. I'm not sure if this already happens, but I also think that the insurance companies should make a once or twice a year visit to the doctor's patients just to see the patient outside of the paperwork. They should do random audit patient files at least once a year, visiting the offices that submit the higher amount of claims repetitively, because mainly people who steal feel that they aren't hurting anyone, but Dr. Fata knew he was, and that's what makes his wrongdoings over the top. Thank you.